Jeff Paur, senior writer for RealTime Fantasy Sports, and welcome to another edition of the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. On today's show, I'm going to analyze another draft that took place on our site last night, Tuesday night, August 24th. This was the Fozzy Dog 500. Our good friend Jeremy Brock created a draft, the Fozzy Dog 500. This was a big-time draft with a lot of the top owners from our site in it. It was a great draft. A lot of good stuff took place, and I'm going to talk about it, talk about some of those picks that were made during the draft, my favorite teams, some surprises, all that good stuff I'm going to talk about on this and analyze this draft here on the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. Before I get to that, though, I did want to mention we have drafts going off all the time now, around the clock, all different formats. You can get in our fantasy championship for a chance to win $300,000, our best ball championship. Go to RTSports.com. We have all-American leagues. You can do what Fozzy Dog did here and create your own league, invite your friends, create your roster composition, all that stuff. You can do that here at RealTime Fantasy Sports. It's called the Audible Leagues. You can create those here as well and invite people and get them to play in a league with you. So go to rtsports.com, sign up for one of these leagues today. That NFL season is right around the corner, so get signed up, get in one of these drafts. So let's talk about the Fozzy Dog 500. Great draft. It was $500 to get in, a $3,000 first place prize, $1,500 for second, and $800 for third. So these are 20-man rosters, 10 starters, a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, a tight end, kicker, defense, and 2 flex positions. So it's a very deep roster. Like I said, a lot of great owners in it. I'll run through them right now. Richard Mallon had the first pick, so a big shout out to Richard Mallon. This was his 1,000th draft of the season on RealTime Fantasy Sports. So Richard hit the 1,000 mark. He's a great owner, the number 2 ranked player on our site right now. If you're in a league with Richard, watch out. He does a great job, and he has a good chance to win it just like he does in this league. So big shout out to Richard for his 1,000th draft on our site. In the number 2 hole was Yellowbird. Then you have Timothy Dillon drafting third. Then Homer's Hitmen, Neil Mushlin, Earl Weaver Jr., Bradford Robertson, Stephen Izzo, Aaron Curry, Travis Weaver, Jeremy Brock, and Mark Severson. I apologize to anyone's name that I butchered. I likely did that. But those were the owners in this league. Like I said, a lot of the top ones on RT Sports were in this one, competing in the Fozzy Dog 500. So let's look at the draft board. Here it is. You can see it on your screens now and see how it shook out. I want to talk about some picks that were made. Not many surprises early in the draft. Davante Adams went 6th overall. He was the first non-running back picked in this draft. He went 6th overall to the Earl Weaver Jr. owner. And he ended up taking 4 straight running backs after that Davante Adams pick. So he went Davante Adams getting that surefire number 1, the top-rated fantasy receiver on the board. And then he went 4 straight running backs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Chris Carson, Kareem Hunt, and Chase Edmonds. And Fozzy Dog, he's all in on Najee Harris. If you're in a league with Fozzy Dog, he's likely going to target Najee Harris. He had the 11th overall pick and took Harris with his first pick ahead of Aaron Jones, Saquon Barkley, Antonio Gibson. You got to commend Jeremy. He loves Harris this year, and he's putting his money where his mouth is and taking him in a lot of his leagues. I wanted to look at where James Robinson went. This is his first draft that I've seen since the injury to Travis Etienne, and James Robinson was a 3rd-round pick in this one, 10th pick overall in the 3rd round. He went to Aaron Curry. He took James Robinson ahead of David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, Mike Davis. So obviously Robinson's stock's going up after the injury, and he went in the 3rd round of this draft. It's a good guide for you if you want to take Robinson in your leagues. This is where he went in this one. Carlos Hyde, another guy who saw his stock jump up with the injury to Etienne, and Carlos Hyde went in the 13th round, the first pick in the 13th round, to the aforementioned Richard Mallon. He took Carlos Hyde as his 5th running back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5th running back for Richard Mallon was Carlos Hyde. Again, sees a bump in fantasy value with the injury. So those were 2 of the things that I wanted to really look at in this draft. And let's talk about just how these teams stack their rosters. So just 2 teams went running back with their first 2 picks. There was a lot more diversity with the picks here. A lot of guys looking at receiver in the second round. We had, I believe it was 8 receivers taken in the second round. And that was a lot of receivers, just 4 running backs. So a lot of people wanted to get that top receiver and top running back on the roster after 2 rounds. Not a lot going running back heavy, but 7 of the 12 teams did have 2 running backs on the roster after 3 rounds. So while they wanted to get that elite receiver, they still wanted those 2 good backs on the roster. So 7 of the 12 teams had 2 running backs on the roster after 3 rounds. The 6th round was when we really started to see the quarterbacks go off the board. We had 3 quarterbacks get picked in the 6th round. We saw Dak Prescott go to the team with the second pick, Yellowbird, and Lamar Jackson went to Aaron Curry and Kyler Murray to Mark at the end of this round. So started to see quarterbacks go off the board a little quickly there. The last team to take a quarterback was the champs. I got to emphasize those S's. The champs 2021's team. He was the last team to take a quarterback. He got Matthew Stafford in round 12. I really think that's great value for Neil's team. Getting Stafford that late, he's a legit #1 fantasy quarterback in my eyes, and he got him in the 12th round. So waiting on a QB paid off for him. I thought he did well stacking the rest of his team in this draft. So teams waited on quarterbacks for the most part. Just one team with 2 quarterbacks after 11 rounds. So again, the quarterback position was waited on in this draft. A lot of savvy owners, so it's not a surprise to see them wait a little bit longer on that position than most. A couple surprises for me. Michael Thomas, he was picked in round 5 by Travis Weaver. This was actually his first receiver picked, and he took Michael Thomas, who's hurt and could miss several weeks of action. So a little bit risky, but Travis went with Thomas as his first receiver picked, and he's hoping he comes back sooner than later. Another surprise to me was Tua Tagovailoa. He was taken in the last round of the draft. He went in round 20. That's the latest I've seen him go. So a little surprised to see him go that late. Excuse me. I think he definitely has some potential to do well this year. So I think that's really good value getting him that late. Tua, I think that was a little bit of surprise on my part. A couple of players moving up the draft boards that I wanted to look at. Marquez Callaway. So he had the huge game Monday night. He was taken in round 11 by the champs team again. I mentioned Neil's team again here. Marquez Callaway goes in round 11. So this is a guy that wasn't picked in drafts very recently, and he goes in round 11 of this one. Corey Davis, another player, seen his draft stock go up because of his big preseason and getting a lot of targets from Zach Wilson. He goes in round 9 to the Yellowbird team. So that's a little bit of a rundown of the draft. Like I said, you can look at the draft board here. I'll post it again right now so you can look at it and see how all these teams shook out in this great draft. The Fozzy Dog 500, a lot of great owners, like I mentioned. Really tough to pick 3 ones that stood out to me. But these are 3 owners I like, and I think they're going to do a good job this year and have a good chance to compete for the league title. First one I like, the Game Time team. He drafted out of the 7th spot. I thought he did a great job. This is Bradford Roberson. And his picks, I actually think I didn't mention Bradford when I read off the draft board early in my in my video here. But Bradford Robertson, he picked out of the 7th spot, and he took Jonathan Taylor, Calvin Ridley, J.K. Dobbins, Darrell Henderson, Julio Jones, Juju Smith-Schuster, Jamar Chase, Ryan Tannehill, Dallas Goedert, Elijah Moore, David Johnson, Sterling Shepard, Austin Hooper, Tariq Cohen, Justin Tucker, Traquan Smith, Zach Wilson, Josh Palmer, Boston Scott, and the Saints defense. Really like his 3 running backs. It's a running back starved fantasy landscape these days. So I think having 3 good backs is a good spot to be in. And I think Bradford did that with his team. Also like his receivers. You start just 2 in this league. He has an elite one in Calvin Ridley, and then he has some good choices to choose from for his number 2 with Julio Jones, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Jamar Chase. Ryan Tannehill, I think, is going to be a solid number 1 this year as well. So I think this Game Time team did really well out of the 7th spot. Tough spot to pick in, but I think he stacked his team really well. Another team I like is Timothy Dillon. He drafted out of the 3rd spot. He took Alvin Kamara first, then Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, Mike Evans, DJ Moore, Michael Carter, Russell Wilson, Zach Moss, Tyler Higbee, Curtis Samuel, Phillip Lindsay, Devontae Parker, Nelson Aguilar, Baker Mayfield, Darrington Evans, Baltimore Ravens defense, Koo as his kicker, Brian Edwards, receiver, Tyler Croft, and then Le'Veon Bell. I'm not sure I love his backup receiver tight end spot with Tyler Croft. I think he could have done a little better at that tight end spot, but man, really like his running backs. He's got Kamara and Swift as a starter. Then three really good receivers, Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, DJ Moore, a top #1 quarterback, and Russell Wilson. I think Higbee will be good as a low-end #1 tight end as well. So I think Timothy Dillon did really well out of that 3 spot. Another team I like. And the last team I like is Mark's Madness team out of the 12th spot. This was Mark Syverson's team. Again, drafting out 12th spot, not always the easiest. Some people really like that spot. I think Mark did well here. I think he should like this spot. He got Aaron Jones, Tyreek Hill, David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, Cortland Sutton, Kyler Murray, Tyler Boyd, Noah Fant, Will Fuller, Naheem Hines, Russell Gage, Irv Smith, Matt Ryan, Rams defense, Devontae Booker, AJ Green, Gerald Everett, Christian Kirk, Jason Sanders, and the Browns defense. He has 3 really good backs with Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, Tyreek Hill, who I think can make a run at that #1 receiver spot, #1 fantasy receiver spot this year. Cortland Sutton is his #2, Tyler Boyd, Will Fuller as well. You only start 2 receivers, so I think he did well in that receiver position too. Has some good depth there, some guys he can play at that #2 receiver spot. Again, a great draft. Fozzy Dog, 500. He did a great job organizing this, Jeremy Brock. I want to give a big shout out to Jeremy for getting this draft done and getting all these great owners together. So that's the draft. That's how it shook out. Hopefully you can learn from it and get ready for all your drafts, which are heating up right now. Tons of drafts going on. Again, if you want to get in one here at RealTime Fantasy Sports, go to RTSports.com, click on the Money League link at the top of the page, see all the different options we have to offer, all different price points, all different formats. Best ball, you can do regular ones, you can do this audible one like this one is and set it up yourself. So different options, different price points. You got it here at RealTime Fantasy Sports. Go to RTSports.com, sign up for a draft today. This has been Jeff Paur for RealTime Fantasy Sports. Have a great day.